This is Terror in Tannins, Texas.
A show all about true crime paired with delicious local wine. My name is Tara Furiani.
And I'm Justin Boggs. Join us as we spill the tea.
Don't you mean wine?
On Texas-sized terror.
From America's first serial killer.
To the yogurt shop murders.
And plenty in between.
While enjoying wines from one of America's emerging wine regions, Texas Hill Country.
Let's get criminal. I honestly hope I don't spill any wine during this episode.
I hope you don't either.
Because it's really good. I don't want to waste it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to do.
It is. Especially
I've done it
me.
1,000 times, not even trying.
And I'll do it 1,000 more.
We should really have some kind of like towels or something just underneath in case.
We need one of those, holders, like with a straw. You think that's taking it too far? Like a little sippy cup.
It's perfect.
I think so too.
A sippy cup would work, but I like just like hanging from my face.
Absolutely. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Tara. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I am so excited to be starting this podcast with you.
Me too. I love crime.
Oh my God, I did you.
I mean, I will sit and watch it all night, episode after episode.
I know.
That's how I got into it.
I know. Do you remember that time we were on vacation? I think we were in Aspen, and instead of enjoying Aspen, we literally watched hours and hours and hours of Dateline.
Dateline. With Keith Morrison.
Keith Morrison is my favorite.
He's the best narrator.
He really is. His voice is just, it's just something about it. He doesn't believe you. And I like that.
And he'll be like,
I don't know. Did he do it?
What you're saying, I just don't know if I believe it.
Yeah, your eyes are saying, you're lying, bitch. So this is a pretty cool, awesome day that I get to have. I am talking wine and crime with my very best friend in the whole wide world, which is you. And we're talking about America's first serial killer today.
I love it.
First episode, so we went first serial killer. We're right here in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
Everything is bigger in Texas, so of course we had to have like the world's first serial killer, really, because Jack the Ripper came 3 years after the servant girl Annihilator, which is topic of today's show.
Which may have been the Austin killer.
Yeah. The Austin axe murderer.
The Austin axe murderer?
Yeah, I think.
The servant girl killer?
The servant girl and Jack the Ripper. Are they one and the same?
America's Jack the Ripper? We don't know.
Well, I'm excited to talk about it.
Episode.
I am pretty excited about it. Before we jump into the actual crime, I want to talk about a great Texas wine that we're enjoying, Driftwood Estate Winery.
Allow me to pour.
Please. Driftwood is obviously a huge favorite of ours. It's our first episode, so we're choosing this one. We're wine club members there. It is nearby us, about 30 minutes from Austin, I would say, give or take. And today's varietal is a beautiful 2017 Merlot.
Daryl would really get a kick out of that.
Daryl, that was for you. Daryl is the tasting room manager. And funny enough, we actually just wine tasted with him just the other day when we joined their wine club. He actually talked to us just out of the blue. We were sharing a little bit about our show and what we were doing. And he said, my friend, Steven Saylor, actually wrote a book called The Twist at the End. It's a fictionalized version, a more theatrical, if you will, version of the story. But it's about what we're about to discuss today.
Yeah, just a no pun intended, but a weird twist of fate that we would see him there, and his friend is the one that wrote it.
That's exactly right.
After just describing it, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's totally bonkers.
Weird.
Totally bonkers. So really quick, this is 100% Texas grown grapes right here in the high plains of Texas, I think West Texas. It's aged at 18 months in American and French oak. And it's fucking delicious.
It's fucking amazing.
It's really good.
All of their wines are.
They really are fantastic. Cheers.
Cheers to you.
To a great first episode. I hope you guys all poured yourself a glass if you're listening or watching or hanging out with us on social media.
I suggest you grab some wine and have a drink with your very best friend as well.
Yeah, so let's jump on in.
Cool. So let me give you an overview.
Okay.
You already know, but to those of you who don't, these murders started in 84. Now, like around Christmas time.
Of 84?
84 of 1884.
Whew. So like, you had me sweating. This is like America's first serial killer. And
right.
1884.
1884.
Wow. There's just horse and buggies probably in Austin back
just
then.
like 10 years before that, like the Comanche like Indians and stuff were like still invading Texas.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like that's where Austin was in that time.
It's crazy to think about it.
Up. Right? Right?
What I think is crazier to think about is how Austin was a boom town back then. Mm-hmm. It was huge in becoming like a cosmopolitan area like New York or Los Angeles, which is so funny because it's having that resurgence now. Today, becoming more like Los Angeles, more like
feeling it now.
We're really feeling it now, but they were feeling it then, and then this guy came along and started murdering the town. There was only 20,000 people in Austin in 1885.
Yeah, and like the percentage of that still, I mean, it's insane because Austin then is not what it is now.
Obviously.
Right? There were horse and buggies, dirt streets.
Yeah.
There were houses on 6th Street, which was then Pecan.
Yeah, it wasn't even called 6th Street.
Yeah, it wasn't even 6th Street at
Funny
that
enough,
time.
though, there were still prostitutes on 6th Street or Pecan Street. So it's like a weird juxtaposition of that being an area that was, more...
like it's always been the strip.
Party strip. Yeah. And it still is.
It still is. So all of these people, they were all women mostly that were killed. The first 6 of them were black women that were servants and cooks, which is strange because at that point, the police are like, okay, we're going to specifically look this way. But the last 2 that were murdered were 2 white women.
Yeah.
That were murdered within an hour of each other, just a couple blocks away.
Yeah, on Christmas Eve, right?
On Christmas Eve. So this lasted between 2 years, murdered 7 people, like 11 people were also injured in this. But I feel like there was definitely a target to who he was trying to kill.
Why do you think that is? Like, I was doing some reading, just some more. Actually, I don't want to get there yet. Let's save it because we haven't got to the who. Sorry. Go, continue.
Like 5 of the women were drug outside and they were beaten to death, and some of them left with like spikes in their head.
Yeah, like that was his MO, driving something sharp into their head.
They never really said what it was, but like just a spike or like sharp object was what was described.
That's right.
And they were all posed in a very similar manner.
Yeah. Axes were used. They were raped.
Mm-hmm. The youngest one that was killed was 11.
Ugh.
An 11-year-old girl. And when that happened, that's when the town decided, okay,
enough is enough.
This is enough. I mean, I think it was only like the 4th or 5th murder at that time. But then the town got together and they like tripled their police department. The town itself became like a vigilante like uprising. We're going to take to the streets ourselves and we're going to patrol to try and find this person.
Yeah.
And the murders are technically still unsolved today.
That's just crazy to me. Like, that just blows my mind that after all this time, nobody was convicted.
Now, there were some people arrested, like 400 people arrested during all this.
What?
Yeah, 400 people arrested to try and figure out who this was, because there's some details that we'll get into in the case that they were trying to find, but it was just shoddy police work. They arrested some of the husbands and was just trying to pin it on them so they could just get it done with.
Yeah.
Right? If I can just say, Joe Smith over here did it, and we can just do it, then the town can rest easy because there was a mayor up for re-election, so politics involved.
Yeah.
They were just trying to quiet it down as fast as possible.
And it being a growing city and attracting businesses, they didn't want to take away or detour people from coming because they had this crazy guy out there murdering people.
Like serial killer that term wasn't even invented yet. Like nobody had coined serial killer.
Huh. That's really crazy.
Like serial killer didn't get coined until like FBI.
That's nuts.
It's insane.
Let's talk about the victims.
Okay.
I think one of the things I love hearing about the criminals themselves. They fascinate me. I am twisted and morbid in my own head. Like I watch so much crime stuff, and I always have. I'll tell you, follow me on Instagram if you want to know my favorites. But like the O.J. Simpson case is still hands down. And
Did he do it?
I mean, he had to have done it, right? That's a different show. What often gets, missed, and I'm really passionate about several topics. One of them being victims' rights, and another, the Innocence Project. really important. We're going to talk about Innocence Project a little bit later. Really near and dear to my heart. But the victims always seem to be the ones who just get left behind. They're the ones murdered, but they're not the names you know.
Yeah.
You know Ted Bundy. I'd wager most people couldn't name a single victim.
Yeah.
And that's just terrible. I mean, that's the worst that could happen. You hear about all these crazy murderers out there. You know their names, you know their story, you know your own opinion on whether they did or they didn't do it. I think it's just so important to recognize the people who were victims to these folks instead of sensationalizing it. Now, hear me out. I'm on a podcast sensationalizing it because I'm fascinated by it. I just think if I have the opportunity to, share my passion for just understanding crime, criminal behavior, and that sort of thing, I also want to at least give some nods to the victims. And there were several in this case. The first,
good, though.
Right?
I mean, I think it's just the fame, right? Like,
yeah. It's the
fame of the criminal that
it
overshadows.
is just like anything, right? I mean, the fame
sad.
of anything. It's sad, but
Let's hear about him.
But let's hear about him. So we have Molly Smith. She was 25 years old. She was murdered on the night of December 30th of 1884.
She was victim one.
She was victim number one. And in fact, if you head on over here watching the video right now, we're going to put up some video we took of us going to Whole Foods. So we'll take a quick break and we'll see. You guys will get to watch and everybody on the podcast will get to listen to us actually at the location of the very first crime. This is where Molly Smith unfortunately lost her life. Let's take a break and show it to you. So this is where Molly Smith died.
The first victim of the servant girl annihilator.
Number one was it December 30th, 1884. She was a cook nearby.
Which just so happens to be the very first Whole Foods ever.
Get out.
Yes.
This is the very
This
first
is the
Whole Foods?
exact location.
When did it open? Like September.
Of
1980.
1980, something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
Is
the
that a
first
coincidence? I don't know.
servant girl annihilator attack happened right here, and this is the very first Whole Foods in America.
That felt weird being there. It really did. Just getting onto the property felt weird.
It
knowing that there was a serious murder that happened there downtown.
Yeah.
Seeing all the big city, skyscrapers and stuff, knowing that there were just houses. It didn't look like that.
Yeah, and you actually pointed out something really interesting because Whole Foods was started here in Austin as well, and the site of the first murder was what?
Whole Foods.
Right? Which is the very first one here
in the United States.
In the United States.
I mean, it originated in Austin, but the first one was here.
And it's the same location as the first murder of this first American serial killer, first world serial killer, which is just kind of ironic. 96 years later, it's the site of the first Whole Foods in September 1980. Kind of crazy.
Keeping it local.
So Molly, that was bad. That was tough.
I'm a drink to that.
Yeah, you
I liked
should.
it.
I liked it too.
So
Molly Smith was about 25 years of age. She was attacked with an axe, as you said, in her sleep, dragged into the backyard, and raped and murdered. Walter Smith, who was with her, he was 30, was also attacked and wounded. He didn't die, and that was December 30th, 1884. God. And that happened at 901 West Pecan Street. Like I said, it's the site of today's very first and still beautiful and huge Whole Foods.
Of now 6th Street.
No, that's not. Wait, is that 6th Street?
Is it?
I guess
it's
it
6th
is.
in Lamar, right? I think so. I think it is.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
At the time, it was the residence of W.K. Hall. That was the owner. Molly was a servant. She was a cook for the family.
Oh.
Yeah. So she was a servant, hence the name Servant Girl Annihilator. She was black as well, worked for a white family, and this was W.K. Hall's residence.
So who's Walter Spencer?
Maybe
Who is this guy?
another servant, perhaps. I don't know. There's not much information about people who weren't killed. And honestly, there's not a lot of information about those who were as well. But
I mean, given the times, I can kind of
130 years ago.
If somebody didn't write it down and keep good care of it,
right?
I mean, we would never know.
Yeah, there's some small clippings. You can definitely find all of those
Yeah.
in the show notes on our website. The next murder was Elijah Shelley. She was about 30 years of age, a mother of 3 small children, attacked and killed with an axe in her sleep on May 7th of 1885. She worked at the residence of Lucian B. Johnson, or Lucian. I don't know. I have a son named
Lucian.
Lucian's like my son's name.
I like that.
A neat cottage on the corner of San Jacinto and Cypress Streets in the southern part of the city. So so she was, I think, a cook there as well, or a servant as well. And the next one was
Irene Cross.
Irene Cross.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think she was the only one that was not killed by an axe.
She was attacked with a knife in her bed and died of those wounds.
Yeah.
Like, she died before he could finish his ritual.
Of dragging her outside.
Yeah, because it sounds ritualistic, right?
I mean, it really kind of does.
Right? Like, he was interrupted, or he was interrupted and couldn't do it fast enough. Maybe she just bled out. Who knows? Maybe he pierced something.
Then it doesn't matter to him if she's not alive. Yeah, the torture aspect of it, he may like.
I wonder if there's a touch of necrophilia, because he rapes them as well, typically, right?
Yeah. Are they dead before?
I don't know.
He kills them.
I mean, I don't even know. I don't know that there's anything that really says anything like that. None of my research lend itself, but I wondered if. I don't know. That's something to think about.
I think that's something to check into.
I wonder if Eliza Shelley was raped. I guess that would maybe like
put it together,
prove my point I just made, or theory I just gave. I don't know.
I wonder.
The next one, and she was at 302 East Linden Street in the rear building. That's where Bananarchy is right now, right?
Yeah.
In the drag. That's near UT. So that's right near campus.
Right in front of
in
UT.
Campus, basically.
Yeah. In the drag.
Yeah. The next person who was killed.
This one's really sad.
This one I can't.
I just don't even
you
thinking about it.
I don't either. I have a 12-year-old daughter.
So Mary Ramey, she was murdered on the night of the 30th of August in 85. Her mother, Rebecca, was seriously wounded during this.
Yeah.
Now, Mary Ramey was only 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our theory of, these women are targeted, right? They're killed the same way. They're brought out, left in the yard, backyard, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like this kind of just throws it out the window.
Well,
a little.
Okay, so hear me out. It's 1885. People married at 12, 13 years old at that time.
Yeah.
So he might not have seen her as a young girl, although she was. I mean, you know how I feel about this. She obviously was absolutely a young girl, but the times were quite different. And so I wonder, in his own mind, in his own twisted psychosis, if he even saw a difference. I wonder even if that's why the mother wasn't killed. Because she was only wounded.
Yeah.
Like the mother didn't fulfill the fantasy. The man servant didn't fulfill the fantasy.
But that's his MO. Like, somebody is left alive.
Well, sometimes if somebody's there.
But those people don't have any eyewitness testimony.
No, and people had described him as light and as dark, as short, and as tall,
wearing
no clothes and wearing a
dress,
yeah,
wearing a hat. Some wearing just something over his mouth.
Yeah, the descriptions, the eyewitness testimony
it's all shoddy.
It's shit, I mean, as it usually is.
Yeah, it's all fucking moonlight and candles.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It really is.
Yeah,
it's candlelight.
I mean, there's not a lot to really go on at that point. And that's a weird time.
And this was at 300 East Cedar Street, the residence of Valentine O. Weed, which sounds...
Oh, V.O. Weed?
Doesn't it sound like a promotion that you would find in San Francisco or Seattle or any place that sells weed? It's like Valentine O. Weed. Get your St. Patrick's Day and your Valentine all in one place.
Jesus.
No?
Or like a promotion in the company. I'm now the VO of weed.
I'm now the VO of weed. I like it. So that residence, though, is important. It's exactly 1 block north of the location where Eliza Shelley was killed, just a couple of months earlier. The next was Orange, Washington, 25 years old, killed with an axe once again while asleep. Gracie Vance, who was 20, was also struck in the head while sleeping, carried into the backyard, raped, and murdered. And 2 other victims, Lucinda Body and Patsy Gibson, both 17 years old, were attacked and wounded but not killed. This was in September 28th of 1885.
Again, like, is this person getting off on, like, some people living through this?
Like knowing terrorizing them?
Terrorize. Like, they're going to wake up and realize that someone that they love or are extremely close to is dead. Mm-hmm. And that they were there when it happened and now they have to live with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just, and fear, right? And then fear mongering, leaving someone around to tell others that the boogeyman is coming.
Which is what the city was doing, basically themselves.
That's exactly right.
I mean, they freaked themselves out.
Yep.
Ugh.
So this was the residence of William B. Dunham, and it was in the servants' quarters in the rear yard where it happened. The old main building of UT was located just to the southeast of this location. It's at 2408 Guadalupe, which is now San Marcos Street, I guess, or was San Marcos then.
Okay.
But now it's 2408 Guadalupe.
How many are left?
Ooh, there's 3, 2 more deaths, 1 more attack. The next one is the next one we went to today.
Susan Hancock.
That's right. That was really interesting.
That was interesting. Because if you don't know anything about it, she was murdered at the present day site of the Four Seasons.
Right here in Austin, which is funny because Susan Hancock, well, actually, you know what? We have a video about it. Let's show it to you.
Driving down Cesar Chavez, formerly Water Street, we are in the shadows of the skyscrapers and stuck in rush hour traffic. It's hard to believe that this was once a dirt road with nothing but houses lining the streets. As we pull up to the Four Seasons with Susan Hancock in mind, we start to imagine ourselves back in that time and what the fear must have been like. Cheers.
Cheers. So we are at the Four Seasons in Austin, and at the site of
Susan Hancock's murder,
which is one of the last murders for the servant girl Annihilator.
Yeah.
And we're right here at it.
It's here.
Right here.
Where she was found in her bedroom very, very late at night with an axe wound.
No, she was found in the backyard, I thought. Wasn't Susan
She
in the
was
backyard?
found in the backyard. She was dragged outside.
Yep.
But she had an axe wound and a sharp object pierced through
Into her brain.
skull.
Ugh. Totally freaky. So we are at that site, which is present day the Four Seasons in Austin. We're sitting at the bar, obviously, having a drink. Normally we do wine, of course, but aviation and Lagavulin, sacrifices. It's kind of creepy. So the actual address that it was then was 203 East Water Street here in Austin. And it's almost exactly the site.
Yeah, almost
crazy.
exactly. Because this plot of land was probably more houses at this point before it became the Four Seasons.
Yep. And we're right here, right on the river.
Was Water Street turned into Cesar Chavez?
Yeah, turned into Cesar Chavez. I don't know when. We should find that out. We'll post that on the show.
We'll post that on the show. Yeah.
So Hancock awoke in the middle of the night and was thinking that somebody was robbing the house. This was the husband. Felt around and noticed his pants were gone. And out of concern, he walked to his wife's room, which is totally weird. He walked to his wife's room. Different
They
times,
lived in separate
right?
rooms?
Separate spaces. Yeah. Different times, I guess, right? 1885 is when these murders took place. Her room was on the complete opposite side of their house then, and the room was pretty lit up. It was a full moon, or pretty close to a full moon that night, and says he was paralyzed in the moment because he saw clots of blood on the bed, and his wife was nowhere to be seen.
Were there drippings?
I guess, yeah, all the way to the backyard and in a pool of her own blood. She'd been dragged 100 feet from her room. Right here on the spot. Her skull was fractured in 2 places, and she had blood oozing from her ears.
That is a terrible way to die.
Yeah. The husband said he'd seen 2 men jump the fence at his property, and they got bloodhounds in on the search, but they didn't find any evidence of anybody in the house.
Now, was that the location, or was it Eula Phillips where they found the footprint?
I think it was at Eula Phillips where they found the footprint.
Which Eula Phillips was just killed an hour later.
Yeah, just down the street.
Just a couple blocks.
We're gonna go there.
Exact same way.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Which Eula Phillips was killed at, was it present day Whole Foods?
Yeah, I think.
Or was it? No, it's a parking lot.
It's a parking lot. But we're gonna go over there, 302 West Hickory Street, which I don't think it's that anymore. So kind of crazy. Like, this is the spot. Kind of feels weird to be here.
This is where it happened. It doesn't feel creepy, but thinking back at that time, when everything was different, Austin was like a little city. To know that like there were houses on these streets and really, really brutal murders were committed here.
I mean,
the first ever serial killer
in American history. Totally crazy. I never caught.
3 years before Jack the Ripper. Was he
Jack the Ripper? So Susan Hancock was regarded as one of Austin's finest women, and this is where her home was. I think fitting that it's now at present day Four Seasons. I wonder if her ghost still haunts this place.
I think she does.
I mean, if
I would
had to get murdered by an axe murderer, I would hope that the next site up would be the Four Seasons. Hell yeah, I'm gonna haunt that bitch.
You're damn right.
I get that Four Seasons smell. Yeah, all the way up.
Four Seasons smell. Every Four Seasons smells so good.
I know. And the one today was no exception. And they can make a hell of a aviation. And they poured your Lagavulin excellently.
Just beautifully. Just neat as it could come.
So Susan Hancock was 41 years old and white. She was the wife of Moses Hancock, who was 55, and obviously the owner of what was a beautiful property that overlooked the river.
Yeah. And she was the first Caucasian woman, right?
She was. That's right.
That was killed.
Same MO. Oh,
New Year's or Christmas Eve.
It was Christmas Eve, and she had two daughters, just 15 and 10 years old. Could you imagine what Christmas was like? I mean, the town actually canceled Christmas. Like the city of Austin canceled Christmas because of these horrific acts. Same deal. She was dragged into their backyards. She actually died of her wounds on December 28th.
My gosh.
Yeah, she was found by her husband in the backyard,
and she couldn't. She was probably
mortally wounded, and just hanging on probably by a thread.
And then just an hour later, he went to the family residence of James Phillips Sr. and murdered Eula Phillips, 17 years old, the mother of Thomas, who was just 1, and the wife of James Phillips, James Phillips Jr. They were living at the father's home. Yeah.
Same deal. Struck with an axe while sleeping, carried in the backyard, raped and murdered. So I guess did he rape Susan? Or did he not get that fulfillment and then went over and had to do it again and complete the ritual? Did something happen where he didn't get to fulfill the rape fantasy? Because it's not mentioned anywhere that Susan was raped, I don't think.
I don't know. Does it have something to do with Susan not being dead until 4 days later?
I don't know. Also injured was James Phillips Jr., 24 years old at the time. He was attacked and wounded. Interesting enough, their home was the site of the present day Austin Central Library.
Where you can find probably some of this information out.
Potentially so.
Now, wasn't Hancock and Phillips, those two husbands were charged with murder.
That's right. Phillips was actually convicted. But it was later overturned. They were one and two of the other 398 people arrested for the crime.
And just caught up in that like shoddy police work of, the mayor needs to get reelected. He needs to put an end to this like citywide, terror, so we can just pin it on him.
Yep. Yep. So those are the victims. That's kind of that's the deal. That's the crime chronology and everybody impacted. Let's talk about who might have done it. Because there's some theories.
The last two victims is where I feel this person got way more comfortable with what they were doing.
So I have a
past,
different theory.
So.
I have a different theory than you.
Okay. Well, tell me your theory.
Well, my theory, knowing who I think I know it is. So let's just say it out there for everybody, so y'all can Google it and we can tell you a little bit more about it. His name was Nathan Elgin, and he was 19-year-old black cook who worked at, what's the site now? Is it it's
Sixth and Congress,
right?
It used to be Simon's.
It was Simon's, which was the most upscale restaurant in Austin.
Yeah,
it was a fine dining establishment, one of the nicest restaurants in Austin. He was a cook there, and that's interesting. I was reading a little bit about like his upbringing, and he had probably some child abuse, some stressors. He was married, and his wife gave birth to a child the same night the last two crimes happened on white women. So the night of Christmas Eve of 1880, is it 1885, right? Mm-hmm. The night of Christmas Eve, the night of Christmas Eve, his wife Sally gave birth to a child there first.
Nathan Elgin's wife.
Correct.
While he was out murdering people.
That's correct.
Or did it happen after the baby was born?
So I don't know. I don't know the timing. It doesn't say anything like that. He had married Sally Wheat in 1882. She was a year older than him. They did not live together, which was not uncommon at this time, particularly for people who were in the servant or the hospitality, as you would call it now, trade. But at the time, it was considered the servant trade. A cook, even at a restaurant, was considered like a servant. It's possible Sally could have maybe held the power in the relationship. Maybe I would wager she didn't have any awareness of the crimes, but perhaps.
Power in the relationship?
I don't know.
In 1885?
If he was a psychopath, I don't know.
Maybe. Okay.
Could be.
Or he's just a psychopath.
Probably just a psychopath.
Probably just a psychopath.
Yeah. So it's she also could have been a victim of abuse herself.
True. If he's out murdering these women, mm-hmm. I would imagine he was probably not all that kind to her.
There's just lots of interesting theories to think about.
Yeah.
So why I think Nathan Elgin did it. The quick and dirty of it is, he had a pattern of violence toward women. When he was ultimately killed, which I'll get to in just a little bit, he had dragged a woman out, was beating her, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, he dragged her outside?
Exactly. Exactly. But that's not the smoking gun here, people. The smoking gun there were bloody footprints found at the Phillips house. That was the last crime. That was Eula. Mm-hmm. Christmas Eve.
But there's something specific about that footprint.
There is something specific. It was only four-toed.
He didn't have a pinky toe.
And Nathan didn't have a pinky toe. And so what's crazy is that this was known for whatever, but to your point, people were up for re-election. The city was growing. It's they wanted to just squash it or who knows what.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
They straight up lied to everyone they arrested.
Yeah.
And got footprints and said that there was a match.
Right.
When they never really released that, the footprint that we found in the home
only
had four toes.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. The resolution is there's no resolution.
Yeah.
Nobody was ultimately charged. This is the oldest unsolved crime in America, I believe.
I think so.
Certainly in Austin.
Definitely
but if it's
in
America's
Austin.
oldest serial killer, well, I guess that doesn't mean. That means it's America's oldest serial killer. It is one of the oldest unsolved crimes in America. It is the oldest unsolved crime in Austin. We have a lot of unsolved crime here.
Yeah.
So that's really saying something.
I mean, some of it's still kind of recent, but most of it in the past.
Yeah.
Thank God that our crimes now are actually being solved.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, we'll talk more about that kind of stuff.
Talk
More about kind of that stuff too. On that note, let's take a quick break. I had an epiphany over the break, and I remembered that I was going to tell you my theory on
Nathan?
why the perpetrator switched from black servant girls to, more the ladies of the house at the time, if you will, the white women.
Okay.
Which is kind of what they were. I need more wine.
I was
Are you
just
doing that?
about to say,
You're
while
such
we're
a
getting into
gentleman.
this theory, would you
Yeah.
mind if I poured you another glass?
I would love it if you poured me another glass.
All right, let's hear this theory.
All right, so there's not a whole lot known about his past, Nathan's past. However, we do know that there's some question over who his mother was. It seems like he was raised in not necessarily any poor kind of way. He relocated from Arkansas to Austin, and had several siblings.
Thanks, Arkansas.
Yeah, thanks, Arkansas.
Just kidding. We love you, Arkansas. It's fine. I'm not trying to.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. Cheers to Arkansas.
Here's to you. It's not your fault.
That he'd been in Austin for a very long time. So he has a lot of knowledge of the area. He knows if he grows up in whatever kind of, environment, but he was listed as a servant, and he would have and did, by all accounts, work in home type settings, which means he would have more than likely received direction, and in that time, probably more like abuse, if you will, or extremely, direct tasks and chores, because while they're not exactly slaves, they're still treated sort of as such at this time, by a lot of families. That probably wasn't everybody's practice, but that certainly was a lot of people's practices.
Yeah.
And he may have experienced a lot from the women of the house, because that is who directs the servants at that time. The men are bankers and businessmen and cowboys. I don't know what they were. I'm not really sure. But, they were men of industry, right? It's your white collar, if you will, of today. That was they were off doing those things, and women ran the households. So they weren't just, they're not stay-at-home moms or necessarily, because they have nannies and they have servants and things like that, but they're in charge of making sure that household gets managed properly. So he may have had a lot of rage directed toward white women. I don't know. It's conjecture is honestly what it is. I don't know. And maybe, maybe there was other rage in that his either mother left, or he was raised by somebody who, there's some mystery around his growing up. I just wonder if that's like a direct correlation to like seeing his mother as a slave or as a servant woman, and maybe feeling resentment for the life he's living. I mean, I don't really know. It's weird to change patterns like that.
I still think about the 11-year-old girl.
I did too, but again, like it
kind of throws a wrench in a lot of it, right?
I disagree with you. Like, I mean, the last victim, Eula, she was the 17-year-old mother of one. So no, that means she was at the earliest 15, maybe 14, when she became pregnant. Because you're pregnant for 10 months with a 1-year-old child, and then who knows how long they were married prior to. She wouldn't have been much older.
Now, was she the one that was seen in and out of the brothel, right?
Eula
Phillips.
Was Eula in and out of... What? Are you dropping a bomb?
Right? I think so. Because it was said, like, that's where he may have seen her, because Simon's was right around the corner from that brothel.
What?
So he may have followed her home from that brothel. Either it was her or Susan, but I think it was Eula.
Okay.
Because that was the strange, like, fact of that part of the murder.
What?
Yeah.
But I thought Eula was like a rich white girl, wasn't she? She was working as a prostitute as well.
Eula married Rich.
Married Rich.
Susan was the, like, proper woman who was murdered where now Four Seasons is.
Right. No, I know that. I guess I just didn't realize, like, I thought that Eula was also like a proper lady, if you will.
No, I'm pretty sure she, like, married Rich, because there is a surviving member of Eula's family.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like a great niece.
Oh, wow.
So Eula's sister is still alive.
Okay.
Or was still alive.
Okay.
And
yeah,
then
that makes sense.
that granddaughter is alive, and she has spoken about it.
I see what you're saying. I don't know how I missed this one really important detail.
That's why that's why this whole
literally
thing is interesting.
Can I just read
because there's so many
the
things.
excerpt? Mrs. Phillips, that's Eula, one of the white women listed under the servant girl murders, according to testimony in the trial of her husband. Because we had mentioned, he was actually convicted, and then it was overturned later. Was almost certainly a sometimes prostitute who had worked occasionally in a brothel operated by African American women.
Right.
The Fort Worth Daily Gazette reported on this in funny enough, tomorrow of 1886. This came out February 14th of 1886, and that is literally tomorrow's date. Today is February 13th. Wow. How funny is that?
It's crazy, right?
Isn't it ironic?
Don't you think?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so like to me, that's why, like, I see your theory,
totally
and I see why, like, you would say that, but, like, there's just so many, like, little things.
Makes me wonder, like,
what?
Am I pissing on a grave right now if I'm like, well, what was Susan into then?
No, I don't think so.
Like, was Susan a working girl
we're
as
just
well?
questioning.
Was Susan also a working girl, or maybe she wasn't the target? Maybe their servant was off. Maybe it was Christmas Eve. Maybe Susan and her husband were wonderful people who treated their domestic employees.
Hold on.
What?
That's a good point.
Okay.
What if she wasn't the target?
But that's why he didn't rape her?
That's why he killed someone else on the same day, an hour later.
Oh my God. That's really plausible. Like, right? Maybe they were wonderful people who gave their dedicated servants
collateral damage,
time off, and then she was murdered. Oh my God. That could be exactly what it is. That's crazy.
Yeah. Holy shit. Like, I just came to that. Like, what if that was the case? Because she didn't die until 4 days later.
Yeah.
So he didn't really, like, put a lot of time into that murder.
Yeah.
Like, and he had never killed two people on the same day. That's not part of the MO.
That was not part of his MO. That's right.
Oh shit.
Well, now you know our theories on the case. Send us that.
I still think Nathan did it. He had the missing toe.
The missing toe is like a linchpin for me.
He was murdered by the police for resisting arrest. And after he was killed, these murders stopped.
Yeah. Well, or did they?
Well, that's why there's this. Now there's a new theory, like he was Jack the Ripper, but like, I don't know. I
don't know either.
I feel like the difference. I mean, if it was Jack the Ripper, I mean, he definitely got better, because nobody can really point a finger at Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
But there has been investigations of what we do know that brings a conclusion that it's Nathan Elgin.
It was definitely Nathan Elgin.
Yeah, like there's a hot spot of the murders, and where this person would have used as a base, and it just so happens to be the hot spot is right there where Simon's was.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just too many things pointing the finger at Nathan. Nathan did it. Nathan Elgin did it.
I'm confident Nathan Elgin did it.
Very confident that he did that.
So he was ultimately killed.
Yeah. I don't know why. Like, why were the police trying to arrest him?
Let's
Was
learn
it
about
in
that.
connection?
What?
Was it in connection with these murders?
So,
Did they close in on him?
Sort of, not exactly. Let's find out after the break.
All right.
So why did he get killed? Why did Nathan get killed and never has been prosecuted? Let me tell you. In February of 1886, a saloon in what was then Masontown in East Austin was the scene of a really violent and disturbing crime, right? A man had dragged a girl from the saloon they were in to a nearby house where he was beating her, and she was screaming for help. The entire neighborhood at this point had come outside because this was just 2 months after the murders on Christmas Eve. This was just in February.
Okay. Of 86?
86.
Of 1886?
Yeah, 1886. Okay. And all of the commotion caught the attention of a nearby police officer, Officer John Bracken. He talked with the saloon keeper, Dick Rogers, and a neighbor named Claby Hawkins. And they went over together with Bracken, the shop owner and the neighbor, to stop the man from beating the girl to death. And basically, the officer got out the handcuffs. The man would not be subdued. He threw off the bar owner, threw off the neighbor, knocked Bracken straight off of his feet, turned around, and then had a knife in his hand. And the officer tried to recover.
This is all while he's beating this woman.
Yeah, like he's fighting off 3 men as well. And there's no apparent reason for the beating. Like nobody understands why that he would lash out at this woman. Yeah. And as the officer had tried to recover, he drew his pistol and fired and brought down the guy who was just completely raging, which was Nathan. And it didn't kill him right away. It paralyzed him. He died the next day.
So that's how.
Yeah, he was beating a woman to death, and that is how he got taken down, if you will. There weren't any crimes after that.
He fucking did it. He was
totally
the one.
Did it. Yeah.
I mean, if he had a knife in his hand.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's part of his ritual.
Did that woman live?
Yeah. He didn't stab the woman. He just beat the shit out of her.
And this is going to sound like probably really bad, but I mean it in the most sincere way. Like, she's probably very lucky.
She's incredible. She was incredibly lucky. Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Like, I don't know the severity of her injuries, but I mean, I don't either. I think anything is better than death.
Absolutely. So,
wow.
I am totally twisted, and I know that you all are probably just as fucking twisted and morbid as I am. If you're listening to this show, I know you are. I really want to have somebody sponsor our show, and I realize this is the first episode, but hear me out. The site of Nathan Elgin's murder was a saloon, was a bar, over in East Austin, which is an emerging area of the city at this point.
Yeah.
And
a lot of growth.
It's actually located at 1402 Cedar Avenue in East Austin, Texas. And it is currently for sale for a redevelopment, $1.1 million. And I have a thought. You and I would love to open Serial Killer Studios and also dedicate it as a America's first serial killer museum.
Oh, absolutely.
And bar, obviously. Bring back the resurgence of the saloon, but make it super creepy. So if anybody wants to donate
$1.4 million.
$1.4 million, that's enough to buy it. And we can probably take care of the rest. So
yeah, and we will get it.
Visit us on our website.
Historical landmark, and then those night murder tours that happen in Austin will stop by that place.
Absolutely, as the final stop.
As a final stop,
multi-partnership.
Or is it the first stop? I mean,
I don't know. I think it has to be the last stop, doesn't it? Because that was his last stop. Oh.
Ooh, I like it.
Now we're thinking.
I like it.
So that site is actually crazy enough. It's for sale. How funny is that?
That is pretty funny.
Okay. I just thought you would really love that. Second bomb I'm going to drop on you. Second bomb. Which we're going to go do, and we're going to show everybody video of this. So at this point in the story, we're going to break right now. And I'll tell you why in just a second, because you're going to see a video that he doesn't know we're going to do yet, but we're going to do it and film it afterwards. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Are we here?
This is the Oakwood Cemetery.
What? That's crazy.
So, left or right?
Pulling up to the Oakwood Cemetery on this cold and rainy day, the first thing we see is 2 stone pillars with a black iron gate attached to them. Already getting a weird vibe from this place. Driving in, you immediately notice that there are some really old gravestones here, but we are looking for some of the oldest ones. We finally find the old grounds section of the graveyard and begin our search for any of the victims killed by the servant girl Annihilator. There are a lot of gravestones just scattered around this area, so we split up and take our time looking at each one. This section of the cemetery is like stepping into a time machine and winding it up to the 1800s. A lot of Austin history, buried just blocks away from 36th and UT Stadium. With no luck on our search and soaking wet from the rain, we make our way to the colored section of the old ground to find Nathan Elgin. With so many unmarked headstones and grave sites, it's not looking like we will have any luck finding him either. On our way out, we take one last look at this incredibly old cemetery. One that keeps so many secrets buried within it.
Did you say secrets buried within it? Really, babe? So, on February 11th, 1886, which was what, just a couple of days ago, 2 days ago, February
Yes.
11th, that was the death day of Nathan Elgin and Oakwood Cemetery right here in Austin, Texas. How crazy was it visiting the place that he is buried today?
Oh my God.
It's insane, right?
It is.
It was nuts, wasn't it?
That was insane. Like, I get creeps. I still get creeps.
I get
Just-
creeps hardcore.
There's just so many things. So many things about Nathan that, like, I wish he hadn't have been shot. Like, I wish he would have been captured and there would have
So we could have learned information.
So we would know more. I mean, wasn't Nathan eventually convicted of, was it Eula Phillips
Right.
and Susan?
Right.
Like, he was convicted of those. That's why.
Postmortem, yeah.
Yeah, that's why the other 2 husbands were let exonerated.
Overwhelming evidence. I don't know
Overwhelming
if he was
evidence.
Was he actually convicted?
I think so, or that's why they were overturned.
Just overwhelming evidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
Like,
So
I want
that's our
to know
theory.
more.
I do
want
too.
to know so much
But
more.
I also want to know your theories on what you guys think happened with the servant girl annihilators. Do you think it was Nathan Elgin? You can find tons and tons and tons of resources on our website, terrorandtannins.com/Nathan Elgin.
I think he did it. Nathan Elgin did it.
I think so too.
I believe it.
I really think so
100%.
too. I 100% believe it too. But I definitely want to hear yours. So at us at Terror Tannins on all
Please
social
do.
media. It's just at Terror Tannins. All right. So this week in crazy Texas crime.
Okay, so a couple of things. Abel Ochoa.
Yeah.
Ochoa.
It's Ochoa.
Ochoa was executed for killing his wife, 2 daughters, father-in-law, and 2 sister-in-laws.
What?
Yeah. Like a whole family murder.
When was this?
Oh, shit. Let's see. In 2002 in Dallas.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. These are like his last words.
Oh my God. You're going to read his last
I'm
words.
going to read some last words.
Yeah.
So he says, I would like to thank God, my dad, my Lord Jesus, for saving me and changing my life. I want to apologize to my in-laws for causing all of this emotional pain. I love y'all. That's how you know he's from Texas. I consider y'all my sisters I never had.
What?
I want to thank you for forgiving me.
What?
And he was pronounced dead at 6:48 p.m.
Wow.
23 minutes later after the drugs
Wow.
entered his system.
Wow. Why did he kill them?
Oh, man. Look, so about 2 years before the murders, like, he started smoking that crack cocaine.
Oh, he's smoking that crack.
He's smoking that crack cocaine, and he said this
Crack
at trial.
kills people.
So, like, his drug use escalated. He was taking money from his wife and was taking small loans out to buy drugs, and he walked off the job like a couple months before the murders.
So
Like,
it's
he had
just
worked
stress.
there. He had worked at his job for just over a decade.
What?
Yeah.
And he just walked
And this
out?
is all court records.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he just walked out.
Wow.
But he's the second person to be executed in Texas in 2020.
Already? God damn it. They didn't waste any time.
Just the
Well, I
third
guess
in
they
the
wasted
nation.
17 years, but
Yeah. But the third in the nation. And
Wow.
7 more men are set to be executed in Texas through May.
holy shit. That's some news this week.
That's
I have
insane.
something for you too.
What you got?
So police in Texas believe there could be a connection, maybe. Like, I love when news articles are like, we think there could possibly be a connection. The gist of the story is that the police were coming to the wife's house, right? Like to the wife, Sugarland police, up in, I think, is that near Houston, right? I don't know. Near
I
Houston?
think I want to say so.
I think so. I'm so sorry. We're from Austin. Like,
Yeah.
we don't. They were going to notify the wife that her husband had been found dead of an apparent suicide, only to find the wife and their son slain in their home, hundreds of miles away, like by gunshot wounds. So it looks like the husband totally murdered the wife and murdered the son, and then
Drove
drove
back home.
hundreds of miles away and murdered him and then killed himself. So Diana Lynn Logan and their 11-year-old son died from gunshot wounds. And literally the police nobody knew they were dead. They hadn't been reported missing or anything like that. They were coming to notify next of kin that the husband had died. So there's no details that have been released, not many more details related to the case that have been released at this point, but I definitely want to follow up on this. Obviously it's, looks pretty straightforward, but
Yeah.
man, Richard Logan, who was 53, was found dead of a single gunshot wound in San Marcos, at his work or at a business, which is just, I don't know. That just hurts my soul.
Yeah. Like,
Kill yourself if you want to. Don't kill your family.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not advocating suicide. I'm just saying, obviously, but if you're
if
gonna,
you're
if
having the
you're
problem-
the one having the problem, and you feel like the only way out of it is to murder yourself, don't take anybody with you. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Don't
it's-
take anybody else with you. They didn't want to get murdered. They don't want to die.
It's like that one Dateline we saw where, like, the guy killed everybody in the family and the dog.
And the dog. Jesus Christ,
Like,
what did the dog do to
what
you?
kind of fucking person kills the dog?
So exactly.
But then he killed himself.
After you
So it was
murdered
like,
your son, who's 2, and you're what?
yeah, I'm gonna kill the dog too.
If you
Fuck
want to
that
kill
dog.
yourself, fuck you. Okay, don't take your whole family out with you.
That dog was probably a
Dick. You think the dog was a dick? That's what he was thinking.
Probably.
This dog's an asshole. I'm a murderer.
This dog can identify me. It's fucking Scruff McGruff.
Start barking at him. They say that dogs are scientifically able to determine a bad person.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, I
truly,
feel
there's
I
a
feel like,
correlation
well, I
there.
feel like animals in general can
Have an instinct.
can pick up on
They have
like that
to.
vibe.
Don't they have to? It's like
Yeah.
fight or flight in the fucking jungle, isn't
It's
it?
nature.
God damn it.
This wine is so fucking
It
good.
actually is. I know we're drinking it kind of slow. It's just because we're talking so much, but it's really good. I want to talk about the Texas Innocence Project case of the month.
All right.
This is really important to me. I am a huge, passionate supporter of the Innocence Project.
You could say us. Like, I mean,
Us.
I feel pretty strong about the Innocence Project. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people out there that are wrongly convicted. There are people out there that are rightly convicted. But those who are in the case that it's the justice system is failing them. And the problem is a lot of people in these cases know that it's failing them, but the prosecutors have to do their side,
yeah.
right? So they have to do their job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a lot of times I think you could disagree with how they do their job sometimes.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. Everybody's got a job to do, but it shouldn't be at the expense of putting an innocent person behind bars and ruining their whole life.
It sucks that it is.
It is. It sucks that it is. But I am so thankful that people like Alan Dershowitz exist, who created the Innocence Project. You might recognize his name from the O.J. Simpson cases. Hi, Alan. He is absolutely one of my favorite human beings on earth. I don't know him, but I absolutely want to. And I am a huge supporter of the Innocence Project from a donation standpoint. And I do absolutely as much as I can from a...
So go donate.
Go donate to them right now. It's a worthwhile cause. So the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice in the state of Texas, have helped, along with individual donors and private foundations, 27 Texas citizens with their families who had been wrongly convicted of crimes, many of which were exonerated by DNA evidence, actual video evidence, crazy stuff. Like, you can't believe what some of these people are exonerated for. But a lot of times DNA testing just wasn't a part. Yeah, please. Of things available 20 something years ago. And unfortunately, the Department of Corrections works at a glacial pace. And some of these people have been incarcerated for the majority of their lives, effectively losing their whole lives. In any event, I want to talk about some cases that are happening right now. One in particular that the Texas Innocence Project is working on. Bell County has George Powell III in custody. He was convicted of an aggravated robbery in 2009 and sentenced to 28 years in prison. George's innocence is anchored by two key facts. Witnesses said the robber was about 5 feet 7 inches tall. George is 6 foot 3 inches tall. New forensic video evidence confirms the robber was short, and George is clearly not. Second, a jailhouse snitch lied about George being the robber in return for favorable treatment in the snitch's case. We now await the decision, by the district court. Yeah.
So that's one thing that I have a problem with in offering like cellmates and people in jail. Like, hey, I'll give you less time if you can tell me something about this
guy.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what happens behind closed doors? We all know, like, we watch true crime, like
a
all
lot,
of us,
just like you guys do.
right?
Sean.
So there are a lot of shady and fucked up interrogation techniques.
Absolutely.
Like, I can just straight lie to you.
Yeah.
And that's legal.
Yeah, it would be something like
Right.
this. Like, Justin, look at Tara's already told us everything. Okay?
Yeah.
I know.
She's already told us about the gun.
I know. Exactly.
Like,
she told me about that bottle of wine that you opened. She told me all about it.
yeah. So like,
So just tell me what it is. Just tell me what type it is.
Without, I'm not telling you,
but I'm kind of
leading you into what I need you to say.
Yeah.
And if you just say that,
yep,
then we'll knock some years off your time.
Absolutely.
Or
fine.
make your cell real padded and give you all the good stuff.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I have a problem with that. Like, how, because the main thing in court, like with witnesses, right? Credible witnesses.
Absolutely.
Now, is someone in jail for another crime that's most likely heinous, or probably not, could be drug charges, which are stupid, but like, would you consider that person a credible witness?
Fuck no.
They're in fucking jail.
And they weren't there. You're talking about hearsay. Look, I don't know how jails works. I have never been arrested. Have you?
No.
I literally don't know what it's like to be in there, so I don't have any frame of reference here, but like, I would imagine you probably talk some shit when you're in there. So like, I'm trying not to get stabbed. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm going to talk about what a bad bitch I am to everybody. To everybody. That doesn't make it true.
Because people are going to find out what you're in there for anyway.
Exactly. But
so
like, I'm going to talk.
Is it better to just go along with it?
I mean,
to be like, I didn't fucking do it. Like, I'm a good guy.
Right.
Or a woman. Like, no. That doesn't really help you a lot of the time.
You don't reward criminals for time off sentences for crimes they committed by narking or just give it, like you said, providing information and say you said this.
Yeah.
Because we need this to shore things up. Like, it's not how it should work. And I get trying to close out your job. Like, I get it. Right? I appreciate the work detectives do. I don't appreciate the work that detectives do when they're and there's these are exceptions, right? There's wonderful detectives out there. Those are the
Absolutely.
majority. That's the majority.
But it's these specific detectives.
These like specific ones
that know, like
that
they
ruin it
know,
for everybody.
They know deep down inside this is fucked up, and they're just trying to wrap it up.
Yep, because they had to move on. Their boss is probably on their ass, and their boss's boss is probably on their boss's
Chief
ass.
of police is up for re-election, or like trying
Prosecutor
to get
is,
prosecutors. Everybody's up for something.
DA, exactly.
Yeah, like that's like politics.
That's exactly right.
Like, how can you say we have a blind justice system when this stuff takes place?
That's exactly right. The scales of fucking justice are wildly imbalanced, and the blindfold is basically mesh.
Yeah.
So you can see through it. It's ridiculous.
Like that fishnet shit.
It's that fishnet. It's that pretty sheer shit. You know, real pretty.
Real pretty.
Really fairy-like. For more information on how you can get involved with this particular case, related to George Powell or any of the other Innocence Project cases in your local state or here in Texas, you can visit innocenttexas.org or just Google Innocence Project in your local area, and you can see how you can get involved.
Please do. I feel like we're about to wrap it up. Like, this is pretty good. Before we go, I would like to mention a couple of things. Since this is a crime show and we're drinking and having a good time, and I hate to bring it down,
I know,
but there are still missing teens and missing people and
missing elderly folks,
and just so I'm gonna focus this on a couple of Texans that are still missing. So if there's any information out there, please reach out to your local authorities and give them some information. So here's a couple people. Mary McFadden, she went missing February 22nd of 2011. She was last seen 3813 Hidden Hollow here in Austin, and she was born in 31. She's 80 when she went missing.
Yeah.
80 years old.
You guys, 80 years old.
Who does that?
I don't even know. And the worst part is that foul play is suspected, and they can't find her. They can't find her body.
Like feared foul play.
Yeah.
Like
she's only 5'2", 100 pounds, a white female with blonde hair, blue eyes.
Come on.
If you have any information about Mary, I am confident her family would really love to know what has happened to her and have some closure. She's what, 89, 90 years old at this point?
Yeah.
God.
Any information, please reach out to your local authorities. And then the last one I have is Adrian Washington. Has been missing since 2012, June of 2012. It was born in 76, so he was last seen on Loyola Lane here in Austin. 36 years old, black male, brown eyes, black hair, 5'11", about 250 pounds.
Yeah.
I almost said ton. That's a big guy.
He's not that big. He's a big guy, but he's not that big.
And
foul play is also feared here in this one. You guys, if you have any information about either Adrian or Mary, please reach out to the Austin Missing Persons Unit at 512-974-5250 or apdmissing.persons@austintexas.gov.
Yes.
We need to bring some of these folks home, you guys. And we'd love your help doing that.
If you didn't quite get that right then and there will be a link on our page that you can do that. Or if you're just listening and you don't feel like going to the page, and you know something, just go to your local authorities and let them know.
Yeah. Let's bring Mary and Adrian home.
Please. I know she probably didn't deserve it, and he didn't deserve it as well.
Nobody deserves to be missing. Nobody deserves to be murdered.
So what's next week?
I know, like, it's such a shit segue, if I'm honest. Like, no one deserves to be missing. But on next week's episode,
more crime,
more
wine.
It's terrible, but you guys all love it, and we do too. And God, I feel like a dick right now.
No, I mean, I feel like it's that balance of we like all of this true crime because we're not those people.
Absolutely.
And we're fascinated at the fact that people would do such heinous things.
That's absolutely right. Like,
we want to understand, like, what makes those people tick.
And I also want to bring people to justice and bring people home to their families.
Right. And if we can understand more about these people, then we might be able to help bring some people home.
That's right. And we can create more awareness. That's exactly
and
right.
awareness.
So next week's episode, we are going to talk about one of the most prolific cases in Texas history.
It's one of my favorites.
Certainly one of Austin's history, which is Charles Whitman. If that name doesn't sound familiar, that's the University of Texas Tower shooting. Back from 1966. It was the deadliest shooting in U.S. history at the time. Wasn't surpassed for 18 years. He killed 18 people and injured another 31.
Real quick, too.
Real quick.
I want to just start going into it, but I can't because there's so much I want to say.
But the quick
so
and dirty,
much
if you don't know this, and I can't imagine if you like true crime, you don't. He literally climbed the Texas Tower at UT and like shot people from the top. Like, it doesn't get much more.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, they let him in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they left him unattended.
Let's just stop it.
Are you fucking kidding me?
We gotta stop. Thank you guys so much for joining us for Terror and Tannins, Texas. We have certainly enjoyed spending time with you guys.
Yes.
I hope you found the Servant Girl Annihilator case fascinating. America's first serial killer. Justin, I didn't know much about this case, if I'm honest, and I don't know that a lot of people do. There's not a lot of information
until like we decided we were going to do this, and it's like, well, where do we start? Well, let's start somewhere close to home and try and see what kind of theories we can bring out and see what people find interesting. And
absolutely,
this case ended up being something that was like, holy shit, this is bigger than we thought.
Yep.
Like way bigger than we thought.
That's right.
And it never made national news or anything.
Well, it's just different times back then, right?
I mean, yeah.
My cheer coach.
But Jack the Ripper 3 years later, though.
I know.
Made world news.
Well, I don't know. The Servant Girl Annihilator. I love O. Henry and everything. I love books. I love writers, all that.
Jack the Ripper sounds
But Jack
better.
the Ripper sounds way fucking cooler than the Servant Girl Annihilator, if I'm honest.
It's a lot catchier.
It is. But here we are. That's the Servant Girl Annihilator story for you. We'll see you next time with the University of Texas Tower shooting. Justin, I had fun.
I had a great time.
I'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Terror and Tannins. Join us every Friday for more Texas crime and a lot of Texas wine.
Visit terrorandtannins.com and click Murder Groupie to learn how to unlock behind-the-scenes content, participate in live Q&A, see us at an upcoming show, score limited edition merch, and so much more.
We'll see you next week. Until then, remember,
No lawyer.
no taco.